Thank you, guys. Good evening, everyone. My name is Mark Hart. I'm the Executive and Artistic Director of the Community Arts Program, and we are here this evening in a program titled Creativity and Renewal. They emerge as we step out of the pandemic over the past year and a half and really dig into some music for the first time live, and also dig into the creativity and the voices of some young musicians. And who we just heard were members of the Community Arts Program, Miami Jazz Institute, All-Star Jazz Ensemble, Jason Feeler on piano, John Gavidia on guitar, and we've got Max Mello on drums and Victor Geraldes on, Max Mello on bass and Victor Geraldes on drums, all under the direction of Dan Strange. And the first piece we heard this evening is called The Sorcerer, a piece by Herbie Hancock. And Dan, I want to talk to you a little bit about this piece in the sense that this was on an album from 1968 of Herbie Hancock, and my understanding is that album had a lot of arrangements of the usual front line of alto, flute, bass, trombone, and flugelhorn.
Yeah.
And you guys took that arrangement and came up with something like this. So tell us a little bit about that process.
Well, not having any horn players at the time right now with a rhythm section, we decided that it would be best to try and create the colors that are obviously associated with a higher wind. So Jason's hanging out sort of in the upper zone of the keyboard, and Gian's sort of comping right in that mid zone where maybe low tenor sax or trombone would be normally. So we're just trying to sort of get the colors of the winds in a small rhythm section, and as you can see, it sounds great.
Yeah, cool. Great experience for the kids to be able to come together and put that together and reflect that in the instruments. So from this piece, Dan, we're going to move on to another piece I understand that you wrote. It's a piece called Jackrabbit.
That's right. I wrote this about 10 years ago. My wife and I made our first record called Snapshot, and I was listening to a song called Penthouse, and sort of modeling that tune. And I remember sitting there. This didn't have a name at the time, and Steve Guerra was in the room, and he said, "Why don't you name it Jackrabbit?" And that's kind of just what happened. So, it's got a nice form to improvise over. You hear a lot of the members get a chance to blow over the changes. So.
Yeah. So tell us about the instrument that Jason's playing.
Okay.
He's doing melodica on this
So
piece.
you want to hold that up for the camera? There you go. So the horn keyboard, it's sort of a cross between harmonica or harmonium or accordion all mixed in one. So he's controlling the instrument with air while playing the keys, and it's about 2.5 octave range. Yeah, so it's a popular instrument. John Baptiste plays sometimes on the Tonight Show and whatnot with his group Stay Human. So
yeah, when you hear the sound, you know that you've heard it before. So let's listen to your piece, Jackrabbit. Thank you, guys. You know, it's interesting tonight. Normally, we have an audience here with us in the WDNA gallery, but for obvious reasons that we all are aware of, we're not privileged to have that tonight. And with that in mind, it's kind of interesting to think that it's been since around November of 2019 that we've been in this jazz gallery. And boy, is it good to be back and to be playing live again and to be playing for you, albeit while you're still sitting at home at your computers or listening by your radio. That was a piece, Jackrabbit, by Dan Strange, the conductor of the Community Arts Program, Miami Jazz Institute, All-Star Jazz Ensemble, with members of the Jazz Ensemble. So we come to a very favorite part of this program for me, and that is coming to the part of looking at some of the compositions of our young players in the All-Star Jazz Ensemble. And one of those players is Victor Geraldes, who composed a piece called Bittersweet, and we're going to get into that in just a moment. But I have a question for you, Victor, and it's something that's been on my mind, particularly as the pandemic is somewhat flattening a bit, and we're getting back, to school and being able to play in live performance and whatnot. But the past year and a half, living in kind of isolation and also, maneuvering a global pandemic and what all that means for, whatever that may mean for a young person these days. How has that whole experience changed or contributed to your development as a musician and composer?
Well, it's pretty interesting because the majority of the time I had a lot of time off. A lot of my schoolwork I was getting done within those time frames, and I found myself having a lot of wasted time, specifically in the month of March. So then, as April rolled around, I found an old theory book that my parents bought me a couple years past one of my birthdays, and I said, "Why don't I crack this open? I have a lot of time, and I want to try and see if there's anything I can make of it." So I worked on that book for about 3 months, and I tried to improve my musicianship skills holistically. I taught myself how to play the piano over the course of the pandemic. It was just this enormous amount of time that I had where I said, if I really work on these skills while also improving my skills on the drum set and trying to become a more proficient musician in that area, I would come back from summer and from the pandemic a much stronger musician. So that was really my goal, to just try and really hone in on my skills and mature and just work.
Good. So throughout that period, as you said, you did delve into doing some composing. And this piece that we're going to hear now is called Bittersweet. So can you tell us a little bit about that? What's the storyline and what influenced the writing of that piece?
Yeah, sure. So this girl I liked in February of 2020, I baked some cookies with my mom, and I wrote this song for her. And there's a bunch of different things like this, and I went to her house on Valentine's Day, and I gave her these different things, and I got rejected. So
well, that'll inspire a song. Is she listening? Who is she?
I don't know. I don't want to answer that question.
Okay. All right. Well, we won't make you answer it. So were there certain influences in this piece of other composers or standards that you had in mind?
At that time, I was listening to a lot of Thelonious Monk, and specifically to hit a lot of the ballads he was writing. And I tried to model my B section of the piece after that. And I was also listening to a lot of Chick Corea at that time. So he's obviously had a huge influence on my piece. And then Stevie Wonder as well, as I've always been a big fan of his music. I've always attributed some of the stuff that I've written in my pieces to his writing and things that I've heard, that I've liked, that I've incorporated into my own compositions over time.
Okay, great. So let's hear it. Bittersweet.
Yes.
A composition by Victor Geraldes, the drummer in the Community Arts Program All-Star Jazz Ensemble. by Victor Geraldes, the drummer in the CAP All-Star Jazz Ensemble. And Victor, I think if you would have played her that piece, instead of cookies, you probably would have gotten her. So maybe next time. So we're going to move along here with another group in the Community Arts Program, Miami Jazz Institute, and that is the Jazz Prep Band. And I have to say that one of the great things about being in Miami and having a program like this is the wealth of mentorship that you have from those in the community. And as we spoke with Dan Strange earlier, as being one of those mentors and the conductor of the All-Star Jazz Ensemble, another is Derek Fairholme, who's the conductor of the Miami Jazz Institute Jazz Prep Band. And this piece we're going to hear now by the band is a piece called Nutville. Tell us a little bit about this piece, Derek. I know this was a piece that was transcribed in the past by the CAP Jazz Prep Band.
Yeah, we originally took this piece and transcribed it directly off of the recording. And it's a piece by one of my favorite composers, Horace Silver. I love Horace Silver's music for small groups because there's so many interesting parts, and they're not just it's not just a tune. There are a lot of really interesting details. This tune in particular, you will hear some pretty dissonant harmonizations of the melody, which are really interesting.
Mm-hmm. Great. So transcribing, basically, as you said, the kids sit in the room, they listen to the recording, and you can actually write it note for note just by listening to the recording.
Yeah, and I think that's the best way to learn, that I've found to learn jazz and writing and improvising.
And develop the ear.
And develop the ear, yeah. It's just to go right to the recording and say, okay, what exactly is being played? Let's figure it out, rather than from a piece of a transcription that somebody else wrote, or a lead sheet or something like that.
All right, terrific. So let's hear Horace Silver, his piece, Nutville. a piece by Horace Silver, his chart entitled Nutville. I want to, while we're setting up for the next piece with the All-Star Jazz Ensemble, I want to talk with Gary, Thomas, and Lucas Apostolaris, two of our mentors. Lucas Apostolaris, drummer, of course, Gary Thomas, bass player. And I want to talk a little bit about that piece, Nutville, in that Latin mambo style.
Mm-hmm.
And from you, both of you as a jazz mentor, both you and Gary, in experiencing this piece with the Jazz Prep Band, what does a piece like this teach young musicians from a rhythm perspective?
Well, one thing comes to mind in particular, and that's that, when you're dealing with this kind of music, there's always a lot of, kind of intermingling between different genres. And Horace Silver in particular is interesting because his family's from Cape Verde, and there's actually the album that song is from is called the Cape Verdean Blues. And so there's a lot of kind of, there's kind of like a lot of, melding of African music and South American music and what we think of as American jazz in a lot of Horace Silver's writing, and of course, a lot of the other music from that era. So, it's kind of a good way to, look at this kind of music, that it's not just one thing, it's a mix of many different things.
Mm-hmm. Gary, what's your take on?
Yeah, the thing I like about this particular piece is sort of the fact that it's swing and Latin. It has this changing of styles, which is a really essential skill. And there's a lot of tunes that do that. And Horace Silver does that especially on for example, Nika's Dream, which is a tune that I played when I was younger. Also a Horus Silver composition. I think the changing of the styles is a really great thing that you can get from this as a student or a professional.
Mm-hmm. Great. Horace Silver's Nutville. I want to give a shout out to the members of our jazz prep band: Ethan McDonald, piano; Zach Sue, tenor sax; and Nikhil Gowda, alto sax. And also joining us, another mentor of the Community Arts Program, whom we'll talk with in just a few minutes as well, Cisco Demas, trumpet, and Derek Fairholme, the conductor of the CAP Jazz Prep Band. Thanks, guys. So we're going to move on to a piece by Claire Fisher, another keyboard player, as Horace Silver was, and his piece titled, I Remember Spring. music of American keyboardist, composer, and bandleader Claire Fisher, a piece titled I Remember Spring. And this piece, Dan, it comes off an album that is titled America the Beautiful, and it featured piano and orchestra.
Yeah, it's quite a record. I got into Claire's music in grad school. Of course, Claire was heavily influenced by Duke Ellington and sort of took the half-step harmonic approach almost to the next level in not only his compositions but in his arrangements. They're very dense. He writes for a large spread in the ensemble, as you can hear sometimes with bass saxophones in his section, tubas in his brass, and French horn and whatnot. And it just provides this color landscape. But I remember hearing this record and thinking, wow, it's kind of like a Henry Mancini orchestration, but just a denser concept for people really trying to go for something.
Well, I think the interesting thing about this, and such a good choice on your part, is the fact that this is an album that, as you say, orchestra, piano, and to distill all that down into a rehearsal and to come up with an arrangement with certainly a much smaller group than a large orchestra.
Because what they have to work on is obviously not just presenting the melody and the groove and the harmonic changes, but there has to be some of that counterline work inside, the harmonic melodies that are very subtle, that Gian's able to get sometimes on guitar, or Jason is weaving out of the melodica, and there's just a really nice interplay. Even Max is involved sometimes in that voice leading that happens in the middle of the sound. So.
Yeah, a great collaboration,
Thank you.
and what a great learning experience and for all the players. So we're going to move on to another piece, and this is a piece by Charlie Parker, and this is with the Miami Jazz Institute Jazz Prep Band, and this piece is titled Relaxing at Camarillo by Charlie Parker. There's a little bit of a backstory here. He spent time at this hospital between 1946 and 47, and this kind of inspired the piece. And so tell us a little bit about the learning of this and why you chose this piece for the group. And this was also another piece that was transcribed, I believe, by the Jazz Prep Band.
We transcribed it from one of the recordings that Charlie Parker did of it. The blues is just a really important form in jazz. And in choosing repertoire, we had to choose blues. And this was a really good one to work with. It's a Charlie Parker tune, but it's not what you would call a bird blues, which has a lot of, kind of a lot of chord changes, sort of maxed out on it. But this one has a really cool intro that I love. That's very unusual. And it's almost like a built-in arrangement because you've got it as an intro and an outro. And my piano student, Ethan, has worked on it a little bit. So.
Oh, terrific. So let's hear Relaxing at Camarillo, music of Charlie Parker. A tune by Charlie Parker, Relaxing at Camarillo. That was the Community Arts Program, Miami Jazz Institute, Jazz Prep Band, Ethan McDonald, piano, Zachary Sue, tenor sax, and Nikhil Gowda, alto sax, along with Cisco Demas on trumpet. And I want to talk to Cisco here for a moment. Cisco, it's as it is with all of the mentors, it's really great to have you to be able to work with our students.
Yeah, my pleasure.
And so tell me a little bit about what you would tend to say to students studying this piece, number one, and what are some of the things that you key into when you work with jazz students?
Yeah, well, Derek Fairholme actually, was talking about how he really liked the intro to this song, and it's very cool, very different than the typical blues form to have that intro. One of the things I really like about this song is the actual melody. I think it's a perfect example of what Charlie Parker and all these bebop musicians did to, such a foundational form like the blues. If you were to take a look at what the melody is like, it's very much just the bebop language, playing around with the fourth and the third and the blues sound, and then playing around with that blues sound mixed with the bebop sound and some notes that, playing around with a lot of syncopation as well, the kind of one of the main elements of jazz, rhythm, So this melody has everything. It has the rhythmic aspect, it has the blues in it, it has the bebop stuff. So it's a real study in the language and in the art form.
Yeah. When did you
Absolutely.
first play this piece? I'm curious to know.
Oh, I haven't played this particular piece very much, actually.
Really?
So, yeah, it was really good to play with everybody else. I mean, I've played other Charlie Parker music, of course, but this particular one, yeah, I've listened to it a bunch of times, but I really, really like it. I really like the melody a lot. And just like any Charlie Parker melody, I mean, you learn it and you study it and you practice it in some other keys, and it really opens up your whole world.
And it kind of stays with you.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
So, some great mentorship here with our horn players, with Nikhil Gowda and Zachary Sue, and
Yeah, they
and
sound
also
great.
with Ethan McDonald at piano, to be able to work with you, and also Lucas Apostolaris on drums, and Gary Thomas on bass, and of course under the direction of Derek Fairholme. So thanks so much, guys, for adding all of that.
My
And
pleasure.
thank you,
Thank
Cisco.
you. Thank you.
So we're going to come down to some of the last pieces on tonight's program. And this next piece is features the Community Arts Program, Miami Jazz Institute, All-Star Jazz Ensemble. And this is a piece composed by one of its members, Jason Filer. And Jason, this is a piece titled Villain. So can you tell me a little bit about that? What does all that mean? And let's start with that. What's in the title?
I wanted to write something that sort of it sounded like a villain. I had the name before I had the rest of the piece. And I wanted to write something that sounded sort of like it was in a movie and it's giving like the backstory, so to speak, of the villain. So it's sort of dark most of the time. And, but there are moments where it gets lighter, which is like, a different sort of side that you see of them. But the majority of it is dark and just sort of gloomy, but it moves around a lot harmonically, and it's sort of very strange, and it's in 6/4 for most of it, which is irregular, so it's a little different from what you normally hear, so that's what I got from the name.
Mm-hmm. And when did you write this?
I wrote this in 2019,
Okay.
a while ago, and when I realized that we were going to be able to play originals, it was something that I just had already, so I just said, okay, I'll just put this out, and we played it once, and then I made a lot of significant changes to it afterward. So it's much different from it was before, but it was originally made back then.
Okay, so for instance, what were some of the changes and what did you learn through that process?
So one of the biggest things was the lighter section, which is toward the beginning. It'll be very apparent when it comes up because it's in a different key and it's sort of major sounding and not all spooky and stuff. Originally, it was all just dark throughout the whole thing, and then I added that one section because in the harmony classes that we do on Saturdays, I was told that it'd be a good idea to have some sort of like harmonic contrast where it's not sort of the same mode throughout the whole thing. So I added it where you'll still hear resemblances of the melody and the harmony is similar, but it gives a completely different feeling, and that was the goal, to have a section where it breaks from the mold that it had originally and goes into something completely new, while also still sounding in some ways similar to the original part.
Mm-hmm. So these are he's referring to the Community Arts Program CAP Harmony classes on Saturday. where you delve in also deeper, as you do on Monday nights, with your compositions and add things and discover more things. Under the mentorship of Mark Small, we want to give him a shout out, as well as Gary Thomas, who helps out with that as well. So let's hear this piece, Villain. This is a piece by Jason Filer, and he's going to be playing melodica on this. Jason Filer's piece, Villain. Thank you, Jason. And we've got one more piece on tonight's program, another composition of yours called Laser Shark. So you want to tell me a little bit about that? And I'd like Max, if you can come forward here with the bass, and also John for just a moment, and Dan Strange as well.
Okay, so very simply, we were talking about what other songs we were going to play for the shows, and I was like, I'll write something else. This one was actually written specifically for the group. It had these people in mind. While it wasn't a specific arrangement for specific parts, it was just a lead sheet that I came up with. And there was an original version, and then after the harmony classes previously mentioned, we changed some things. So yeah, nothing else to say. I just wrote it specifically for that. I was written in like a day, so that's about it.
Oh, cool. So real quickly here, John and Max, in looking at a piece like this that you can't go home and hear a recording of, what do you think of, and what's the experience doing a piece for the first time, let alone a piece by one of your colleagues? What's that process like for you?
Well, I feel like both aspects of it, both it being, from a friend and a colleague, and also it being something that isn't recorded, kind of lends to a more collaborative experience. I think, since Jason's here and he's my friend, I can talk to him about the piece, what he wants, maybe give suggestions. Whereas with a piece by Miles Davis, I can't talk to him about it. I can't collaborate with him on it.
John?
Yeah, same thing. It's more like we can talk about the sound and what Jason wants. And yeah, it's mostly like Max said, collaborative. And it's really fun. I really like doing this because we get to play what we like, a bunch of jazz.
Yeah, cool. Dan, any final words on this composition process that we've been doing this year?
I think seeing what the students are coming up with and watching them learn to rehearse with one another, because that's a big, teaching moment for them in the real world. There's not going to be necessarily a director. So a lot of my process is to let them iron out and give my input where necessary. I don't like to step on this too much since it's their music. So I'm very proud of the way they rehearse together.
Great. So this year we'll continue exploring the voices of young composers and young musicians in the Community Arts program. And I'd like to thank Derek Fairholme and the Cap Jazz Prep Band, Nikhil Gowda, Ethan McDonald, Zachary Sue. Thank you, Lucas Apostolaris, for being here, Cisco Demas, our Cap Jazz mentors. This piece by Jason Filer, joined by John Gavidia guitar, Max Mello bass, and Victor Geraldes drums. Piece by Jason Filer titled Laser Shark. A piece by Jason Filer titled Laser Shark. Thank you, Jason. And thank you for everyone that tuned in this evening on the air and also still with us on live on the web. So we'll be back in April, and we look forward to another show. And so if anyone is out there is interested in being part of the Community Arts Program, please be in touch with us through our website, communityartsprogram.org. Again, that's communityartsprogram.org. All the information is there. We serve about 125 kids currently in 53 schools around Miami-Dade County, either in one-on-one lessons or in groups like this that you heard this evening, along with some string groups. So we look forward to having you a part of that, communityartsprogram.org. And I'd also like to thank Gary Thomas, whom I forgot to thank a few moments ago for his mentorship in being with us on bass and is also part of the Cap Harmony teachers on Saturdays. So thank you all for being with us this evening, and thank you to all of our musicians. Have a great night.